Translate it, since you're so smart, Director Miles Harrison said sharply, thrusting the printed document into her hands like it was both an insult and a challenge. The fluorescent lights in the Department of Trade Compliance office flickered faintly as a thick silence gripped the conference room. Every head turned toward the young woman standing at the end of the table, holding a matching copy of the same legal document. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just stood there, calm, poised, and silently powerful in her black vest dress and crisp white blouse. Her name was Clara Williams, 24 years old, graduate intern, the lowest-ranking person in a room full of career officials, analysts, and federal bureaucrats. And yet, in that moment, all eyes were on her. Director Harrison smirked, clearly enjoying the attention. "I said translate it. Or are you only good for making coffee and fixing printer jams?" Clara lifted her gaze without any trace of panic and responded in a voice that was steady and unshaken. "Would you prefer Mandarin Chinese, Cantonese, or classical dialect, sir?" The room shifted. Chairs squeaked, mouths opened in confusion. Harrison, who clearly expected to humiliate her, hesitated. "Mandarin is fine," he muttered, trying to recover. Clara began reading. The translation rolled from her tongue with fluency, grace, and legal accuracy. Every clause, every phrase, rendered not just with literal clarity, but cultural and contextual precision. She did not simply interpret words, she delivered meaning. When she finished, the room was silent again, but not from awkwardness. This time, it was from awe. Evelyn Grant, a senior compliance analyst near the head of the table, finally broke the silence. "That was flawless. Where did you learn to speak like that?" Clara looked down at her printed pages, then back up. "My grandfather was Commander Li Jiahui, a Chinese naval interpreter attached to the United States Pacific Fleet from the year 1944 to 1946. He defected and was granted asylum, later serving in the Office of Naval Intelligence at Pearl Harbor. My mother raised me speaking 5 dialects. I studied East Asian treaties and comparative law at Stanford University." Director Harrison went pale. His hand tightened slightly around the document, realizing what he had just done. "And for the record," Clara continued, "this document was embargoed until tomorrow, under Title 19 of the United States Code, Section 1303. Distributing it without proper clearance is a federal offense." Harrison stammered, She's just an intern." Raphael Chen, a senior officer seated across from her, had already picked up the phone. "This is Raphael at Trade Compliance. We may have a Title 18, Section 798 breach. Unauthorized exposure of embargoed international documentation." "Yes, it was witnessed." Clara raised a hand calmly. "There's no need to escalate. I only read the public sections. I recognized the redacted headings and stopped." Raphael looked at her, then nodded with approval. "Still, a breach was attempted. That's enough for a report." Harrison looked around the room, slowly realizing he had not just misjudged her, he had exposed himself. Evelyn shook her head in disbelief. "She's the only reason this department didn't trigger a federal investigation today." 2 days later, Clara found herself at the United States Department of Commerce in Washington, D.C., seated in a high-floor conference suite across from Deputy Undersecretary Teresa Howard. The room was simple, dignified, just like Clara. "I reviewed the incident report myself," the Undersecretary said, flipping through a binder. "You showed clarity, restraint, and protected national interest when your own supervisor failed to do so. We would like to offer you early admission into the United States Foreign Service Officer Fellowship. From there, you can pursue attaché-level training." Clara took a breath. "Only if I can work to prevent these assumptions from happening again. Language is not decoration. It is the bridge to everything we get wrong about each other." The Undersecretary smiled and nodded. "That is exactly why we want you on our side." Back in the Trade Office, Director Harrison was formally disciplined under Title 5 of the Code of Federal Regulations for unprofessional conduct and mishandling classified material. He was demoted and reassigned to a regional auditing role in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 3 months later, Clara stood quietly at a naval memorial ceremony in Portsmouth, where early Chinese-American contributors to the United States Armed Forces were being honored. A new brass nameplate had been added to the wall: Commander Li Jiahui, United States Naval Intelligence, 1944 to 1951. She placed a white rose at the base and whispered, "We remember." Behind her, Evelyn Grant stepped forward and smiled. "Still the intern." Clara turned with a modest grin and handed over a new federal badge. "Not anymore. United States Foreign Affairs Officer, Department of East Asian Affairs." So dignity does not come from job titles. It comes from how we carry knowledge when the world expects us to stay small. Before we end this story, let us know in the comment, where are you watching from? If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button and drop a karma in the comments below.